My name is Natalie Pierce, and I'm 31 years old. On paper, my life looks like the kind that makes loan officers smile and swipe approved without hesitation. I'm a pharmacist. That means years of school, clinical rotations, boards, and a white coat that impresses people more than my actual paychecks do. What they don't see when they picture the doctor of pharmacy is the $80,000 of student loans sitting on my back like an invisible boulder. Every month, $950 disappears from my account like clockwork. It's not romantic, it's not fun, it's just reality. I have a small condo in a decent neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. The deed is in my name, my credit score, my down payment, my chipped mugs next to a color-coded budget binder on the kitchen counter. I know exactly when every bill hits. I know how many shifts I need every month to keep my head above water and still slot a little bit into savings. I'm not rich, I'm responsible. And for the last year, I've shared that condo with my boyfriend, Ethan. He's 29, good looking in that casually stylish way, all tousled hair and graphic tees that somehow always look new. He works in marketing for some lifestyle brand and talks a lot about vibes and aesthetic. He moved in with me last year, right after his old roommate unexpectedly moved in with his girlfriend and left him scrambling. I had space, he had boxes, it felt natural. For a while, things were fine. We split rent, split utilities, split groceries. He'd cook on Sundays, I'd do the laundry. We shared Netflix, shared a bed, shared stupid memes at midnight. But for the last 6 months, there's been pressure. Not about marriage, not really. Ethan likes to talk about someday, but only in vague Pinterest board, our future loft kind of ways. No, the pressure is about something else, something that, to him, symbolized being really serious. A joint bank account. Natalie, it's not that I don't trust you, he'd say, swirling his coffee like he was in a commercial. I just don't feel like we're a team. My sister Zara says if a couple won't join their finances, someone's not planning a future. Zara, his older sister, self-proclaimed financial guru, who, as far as I can tell, makes her money reselling overpriced water filters and posting motivational quotes about building wealth on social media. Every time he brought it up, I gave the same answer. Ethan, my finances are already joined to an enormous student loan. I'm digging out. We split the basics, that's fair. Why do we have to merge everything else right now? He'd sigh, like I just didn't get it. That's the problem. You keep saying, my loan, my debt. It shouldn't be just your problem. We can't move forward if you're hiding money behind separate accounts. Real partners don't do that. The logic made my head spin every time. He wanted my income to be our money, but somehow my $80,000 mountain of debt was supposed to stay my issue. His version of teamwork was selective, romantic about paychecks, allergic to liabilities. Last Tuesday, the pressure stopped being subtle. We were sitting on the couch, TV on mute, some generic reality show flickering silently. I could feel the tension before he even opened his mouth. I can't do this anymore, Ethan said, voice trembling in this very carefully fragile way. I feel like a temporary boyfriend, like I'm just renting space in your life. I need us to be a real partnership. A joint account is the only way I'll know you're serious. If you can't do that, I don't think I can stay. He stared at me like he'd just dropped something noble and brave at my feet. I looked at him, really looked at him. The jokes about how I should be making more by now. The way his eyes lingered on luxury sneakers and watches when we walked through stores. The way he'd casually say things like, once we're married, we can totally upgrade your car. Like he was already spending money I hadn't earned yet. Something in my chest shifted. It was small, quiet, but very clear. I exhaled slowly. You're right. His face lit up. Really? Yeah, I said, forcing a tired little smile. You're right. It's time. We should be a team. Fully. I watched his shoulders relax, the way his eyes sparkled like he'd just won. The next day, we went to a new bank. Neutral ground. Not my current bank, not his. A smiling woman in a blazer walked us through their premium joint checking features. Separate debit cards. Online portal. Overdraft protection. Fraud alerts. Printed brochures with couples smiling in front of houses they probably couldn't afford. We signed the forms. Ethan squeezed my hand. This feels real, doesn't it? He whispered. It does, I murmured. The banker handed us our new debit cards, slid a folder across the desk. So, how would you like to fund the account today? She asked. You can both set up direct deposit from your employers, or Let's start simple, I cut in before Ethan could say something grand. We'll each transfer $1,000 in today to get it going. We can set up direct deposits next week. Perfect, she said. We sat there, side by side, both hunched over our phones. He transferred $1,000 from his personal checking. I transferred $1,000 from mine. The banker turned the screen toward us. Balance 2,000. Ethan beamed. See, we're a team now. He leaned over and kissed my cheek like we were in an ad. That night, after he fell asleep in front of some YouTube video, I sat at my laptop in the dim light of the living room. Not the new bank's portal. The grim gray interface of my student loan provider. 4 years of $950 payments stared back at me. 4 years of budgeting, cutting corners, skipping trips, driving an old car that rattled when the AC kicked in. I navigated to payment methods. Primary bank account, my old checking. I clicked Add New, routing number, account number, the joint account. I set it as primary. Next payment scheduled in 3 days. I hovered over the keyboard for a long moment, feeling that familiar little knot of dread in my stomach. Then I heard Ethan's voice in my head. It shouldn't be your problem. We're a team. Okay, team, I whispered into the quiet apartment. Let's see how we handle our problem. I closed the laptop. In my head, I pictured how it would go. The $950 would pull. We'd have $1,050 left in the joint account. Ethan would see the balance and freak out. We'd have a very serious, very grown-up conversation about how being a team actually looked when there was a real bill involved. We'd either get on the same page, or we wouldn't. What I didn't factor in was Ethan's definition of team money. 2 days later, the day before the scheduled payment, Ethan went out with Zara. Shopping and coffee, he said, kissing my forehead, brainstorming a new side hustle. I came home from a long shift, feet aching, brain foggy. Ethan was in the bedroom, posing in the mirror with a new designer jacket I recognized from a storefront we'd passed a dozen times. The price tag on that thing had made my eyes water. You like it? He asked, turning so the logo caught the light. It's nice, I said carefully. How did you pay for it? He grinned. With our money, obviously. I figured, hey, we're a team now. Time to celebrate a little. I felt my stomach drop. Our money. 2,000. That jacket cost around $200. I did the math in my head and felt my face go cold. I didn't say anything. It looks great on you, I murmured instead. The next morning, I was in the kitchen making coffee when my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize lit up the screen. The bank. I set it face down on the counter. Seconds later, from the bedroom, I heard Ethan's phone ring. He answered, cheerful at first. Hello? Yes, this is Ethan. Silence. Then, what? No, that can't be right. Non-sufficient what? A payment for how much? I don't have a loan for that. That's my girlfriend's. Wait, how is it overdrawn? I just put... The words tangled into panicked noise. I took a slow sip of coffee. He burst into the kitchen, face pale and blotchy, phone clutched in his hand. Natalie, the bank just called. They said the account is overdrawn. They said we have a negative balance and a fee, and my credit... What did you do? Me? I raised an eyebrow. I didn't do anything. My scheduled loan payment came out. From our account. Your loan? His voice jumped an octave. You put your student loan on our account? Of course I did. I leaned against the counter. You said it shouldn't just be my problem. We're a team, remember? But it's overdrawn, he stammered. How? Well, let's think. I tapped my mug thoughtfully. We put $2,000 in there. The payment was $950. That should have left $1,050. Unless... I let my gaze slide deliberately to the $2,200 designer jacket draped over the chair. His eyes followed mine. He whispered, that was from our money. Exactly. My voice was soft, almost gentle. You spent about $2,200 of our money. That left roughly $800. The $950 payment tried to come out, couldn't, and now we're overdrawn by around $150 plus the bank fee. And like you said, it's a joint account. Everything either of us does with it affects both of us. He just stared at me, mouth open, phone buzzing in his hand. The bank's first call had left him speechless. I didn't say what I was thinking, not yet. You wanted to be all in, Ethan. Welcome to the team. Ethan's speechless phase lasted maybe 30 seconds. Then the screaming started. How could you do this to me? He exploded, voice cracking. You attached your debt to our account without telling me. That's insane, Natalie. That's manipulative. You're trying to drag me down with your mess. I blinked. My mess? I repeated quietly. Yes, your mess. He stabbed a finger toward the hallway, as if the debt lived in the closet with the coats. I didn't take out those loans. I didn't decide to go to some insanely expensive pharmacy program. Why should my credit get wrecked because you can't manage your finances? There it was, the honest part. Not we're a team, not it shouldn't just be your problem, just the core truth. He wanted the money, not the weight that came with it. I've been managing my finances, I said, my voice low. For 4 years, I've been paying $950 every month. I've turned down trips, upgrades, nights out. You know that. You've watched it. You just chose not to hear it. He opened his mouth, closed it, and then the panic twisted into something uglier. I'm calling Zara, he said, storming down the hall. I'm not letting you ruin me. Of course. 10 minutes later, Zara swept into the apartment like she owned the building, her perfume hitting the room before she did. She had a big leather tote, flawless makeup, and the kind of expression you see on people who love conflict as long as they're the hero. Natalie, she said, voice dripping with fake concern. Ethan tells me you've trapped him in some kind of financial nightmare. I almost laughed. Really? I asked. Is that the phrase we're using? Ethan was pacing behind her, gesturing wildly. She put her loan on our joint account without telling me. The bank called about an overdraft. My credit is going to get hit because of her debt. That has to be illegal. Zara gasped, hand to her chest. That is financial abuse. You can't just attach your debt to someone else like that. That's predatory. I felt my jaw tighten. The loan, I said carefully, is 100% in my name. It always has been. I didn't attach my debt to Ethan. I attached the payment to the account he demanded we open together, the account where we put $2,000, the account that was only overdrawn because he spent $200 celebrating. Zara's eyes flicked to the jacket draped over the chair. For a second, her righteous fury glitched. You bought that before the payment came out? She asked. It's our money, Ethan snapped. We're supposed to share now, remember? I wasn't told there was some big mystery bill scheduled for the next day. My laugh came out sharper than I intended. Mystery bill? Ethan, I've been talking about that $950 payment for as long as we've been together. It's why we haven't gone to Europe. It's why I drive an 11-year-old car. My debt has never been a secret. You just didn't care until it brushed up against your credit score. Zara's face rearranged itself, indignation rebooting into damage control. Okay, she said briskly. Fine. There were miscommunications on both sides. The important thing is fixing this. She squared her shoulders. Here's what you're going to do, Natalie. You're going to call your loan company, remove that joint account immediately, pay the overdraft fees, and reimburse Ethan for any damage to his credit or emotional distress. Then you'll close the account so he's completely safe. I stared at her. Pay him back, I repeated slowly, for the designer jacket he bought using half my deposit, which caused the overdraft, and then compensate him for his feelings? Yes, she said, like this was obvious. You're the one with the debt. It's your responsibility. He shouldn't suffer because you decided to drag him into it. I felt something inside me go cold. Oh, I see, I said. So when it's my income, it's our money. But when it's my debt, it's your responsibility. That's not a partnership. I searched for the right word, felt the anger give it to me. That's a parasite. The silence in the room shifted from tense to dangerous. Zara's eyes flashed. Ethan's face went red. Wow, Zara hissed. You really showed your true colors there, calling my brother a parasite because he wants a normal, healthy relationship dynamic. You're toxic, Natalie. You lured him into living with you, made him feel like part of your life, then slapped your debt on his credit. I didn't lure anyone, I shot back. He asked to move in. He asked for a joint account. He spent more than we had in it. And now he wants to pretend he's a victim because reality finally called and asked for its due. They both started talking at once. Threats, accusations, words like lawyer and fraud and report. The shouting echoed off the walls of my small, carefully organized condo, pounding against my skull. I felt my lungs tighten, not from guilt, from something that felt a lot like exhaustion. I stopped listening. In the middle of Zara's monologue about credit repair and documenting everything, I walked into the bedroom, pulled my small suitcase from under the bed, and started packing. A few changes of clothes, my toiletries, my laptop, my binder with my budget spreadsheets and loan documents slid into the front pocket like armor. When I walked back into the living room, suitcase in hand, Ethan froze. What are you doing? He demanded. I'm leaving, I said simply. You can't just run away from this, Zara snapped. I'm not running, I countered. I'm removing myself from a very loud, very stupid argument before one of you decides to escalate this even more dramatically. The account is what it is. The math is what it is. I need space to think. You can't kick Ethan out of his own home, Zara said. My eyebrow twitched. The deed is in my name. Semantics, she waved. I rolled my suitcase to the door. I'll call the bank, I said. I'll call the loan company, and then I'll decide what I'm willing to do. Until then, you both need to get out of my apartment within the next hour. If you're still here when I come back, we can have a very different sort of conversation, with a third party present. Their mouths were still moving when I closed the door behind me. The hotel smelled like industrial cleaner and stale carpet, but it was quiet. I sat on the bed, staring at the generic artwork on the wall, listening to my own heartbeat in the silence. My phone lit up again and again on the nightstand. Ethan, Zara, unknown numbers, a flurry of texts. I didn't pick up. Instead, I opened my laptop. First, the joint account portal. Negative balance, $185, overdraft fee included. I studied the numbers for a long moment, feeling oddly calm. Then I closed that tab and opened my loan provider. Payment late, but not yet in default. Then I made a list. It's how I handle panic. I turn it into bullet points. Pay overdraft to bring joint account to zero. Decide whether to close account or weaponize it. Protect job. Protect home. Make sure any future damage hits the right person. The next day, the universe gave me a preview of just how far Ethan and Zara were willing to go. First, an email from my leasing office. Subject, noise complaints and reported activity. Apparently, a concerned neighbor had reported loud, aggressive arguments and possible illegal pharmaceutical activity coming from my unit. Illegal pharmaceutical activity. I stared at the words. I called the office immediately. The property manager sounded wary but professional. I explained calmly that I was a licensed pharmacist, not cooking drugs in my kitchen, and that my boyfriend's family was retaliating because of a financial dispute. He sighed audibly. As long as there's no actual evidence of illegal activity, this will just stay as a note, he said. But please, try to keep things calm. We don't like getting dragged into domestic drama. I don't either, I said. I hung up and sat on the couch, phone still in my hand, pulse thudding. I should have known that wasn't their final move. A couple hours into my shift that afternoon, my supervising pharmacist, Carol, called me into her office. Her expression was tight, worried. Natalie, she said, folding her hands, is everything okay at home? Ice slithered down my spine. Yes, I said slowly. Why? She glanced at her monitor. We got a call on the main line from a man who identified himself as your boyfriend, Ethan. He said you're going through a severe mental health crisis, that you're under extreme financial stress, and that he's worried you might not be in the right headspace to dispense medication safely. For a second, the room went blurry. He what? I managed. Carol looked at me over her glasses. Is any of that true? I swallowed hard. No, I said, forcing myself to speak clearly. We're in the middle of a very ugly breakup. He and his family are angry that I refuse to let them treat my income like an ATM. There is a joint account involved, a missed loan payment, and a lot of entitlement. But I am not unstable, I am not impaired, and I would never risk patient safety. She held my gaze for a long moment, then nodded. I believe you, she said. Your performance has never given me a reason to doubt your judgment. But I have to document that this conversation happened. If there are more calls like this, it becomes a problem. I understand, I said, my hands clenched in my lap. And I am so sorry that my personal life seeped into work. When I walked out of her office, my anger wasn't hot anymore. It was cold, focused. They'd tried to mess with my home. They'd tried to mess with my job. That was a line. I finished my shift, went back to the hotel, packed my suitcase, and checked out. I drove straight to the apartment. It was empty. Perfect. I moved like I was performing a procedure I'd rehearsed. Boxes from the hall closet, tape from the junk drawer, every piece of Ethan's life in my home, the clothes, shoes, game console, random gadgets he'd rescued from clearance bins. Zara's stacks of water filters went into boxes, labeled with black marker. Living room, bedroom, bathroom, filter pyramid. When I was done, the condo felt lighter. Next stop, the bank. The branch manager, a tired-looking man named Mr. Davies, led me into his office. His plaque said branch manager, but his eyes said seen too much. Ms. Pierce, he said, steepling his fingers, we've been trying to reach both you and Mr. Harper. The account is currently overdrawn by $185. I know, I said. I placed cash on his desk. This brings it to zero. He counted it, typed something into his computer, and nodded. All right, that one's clear. Would you like to close the account? I smiled slightly. No, I said. I'd like to deposit exactly $1 and set up an alert. Any transaction, withdrawal or deposit, over 50 cents sends a notification to both account holders. He blinked. We can do that, he said slowly. So you want the account to stay open with $1 in it? Yes, I said, until my ex-boyfriend and I have a formal written agreement. As far as I'm concerned, it's still an act of joint liability. We are both responsible for whatever happens to it. He hesitated, then nodded. All right, it's unusual, but all within policy. I watched him deposit the single dollar. Balance, $1. On my way out, I pulled out my phone and opened my loan portal again. Next payment, scheduled in 28 days. Payment method, joint checking account ending in cash. I stared at it for a beat, then left it exactly as it was. In 28 days, that $950 would reach out its hand again. The account would have $1 in it. The bank would do the math. So would the credit bureaus. I drove back to the apartment, set the boxes neatly by the door, and finally replied to Ethan's barrage of messages. Got your stuff boxed. Your attempt to mess with my job was a big mistake. The next loan payment of $950 is scheduled to pull from our team account in 28 days. I suggest you start budgeting for it. Then, almost as an afterthought, I added, if you want this to end cleanly, we'll do it on paper. Otherwise, we can let the system teach you what joint really means. I hit send. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. I set it face down on the counter. For the first time in days, I felt oddly calm. The calm didn't last long. By morning, my phone was a minefield. Dozens of missed calls, voicemails, and texts from Ethan, Zara, and, inevitably, their mother. At first, they all had the same tone, righteous outrage. You're a psychopath. You've ruined his life. You'll be hearing from our lawyer. Then, when that didn't get a response, the tone shifted. Be reasonable, Natalie. This is getting out of hand. Let's just end things amicably. If you return his stuff and pay $5,000 for emotional damages, we'll call it even. That last part actually made me laugh. Out loud. In my silent kitchen. It was surreal reading those texts, like they'd all agreed on a script written by delusion. But then the tone changed again. This time it wasn't about money. The messages got darker, guilt-tripping, manipulative. Zara. He's not eating. He's depressed. He's saying scary things. His mother. He's not himself. Please, at least answer. We're worried he might hurt himself. And then, silence. A silence that lasted exactly long enough to make me uneasy. Until 10:07 that night. 3 knocks on my door. I opened it to find 2 uniformed police officers standing in the hallway. Ms. Pierce? One of them asked gently. We received a call from a Ms. Zara Harper. She said you've been despondent and making statements about self-harm. My stomach turned. Excuse me? They exchanged a look. That weary, professional look of people who've seen too much nonsense but still have to go through the motions. Mind if we come in and make sure you're okay? I stepped aside, pulse hammering. Of course. They walked through my immaculate condo, the tidy living room, the quiet kitchen, the neat rows of color-coded binders. I'm fine, I said. I'm a pharmacist. My ex and his sister are angry because of a financial dispute. They're trying to weaponize concern. Please, feel free to check my medicine cabinet if you need to confirm I'm not about to overdose on Advil. One of them cracked the faintest smile. The other sighed and nodded. Sorry for the trouble, ma'am. We'll note this as a false report. Unfortunately, we have to file it, but you're clearly fine. Thank you, I said. And next time she calls, please tell her this is harassment. It happened 2 more times that week. Same story, different officers, same weary expressions. By the 3rd visit, the sergeant himself showed up. Ms. Pierce, he said, rubbing his forehead. This is the 3rd wellness check in 9 days. Same caller. We're documenting this as misuse of emergency services. Thank you, I said softly. He nodded toward my neat living room. You seem like you've got your life together. Don't let people like that shake it. I smiled faintly. I won't. But the truth was, I was done playing defense. It was time to end this, legally, cleanly, permanently. I hired a lawyer, Ms. Isabel Alvarez. No nonsense, mid-40s, the kind of woman who looked like she'd won more wars with paperwork than most people had with weapons. I told her everything, the account, the overdraft, the harassment, the wellness checks, the job call. She listened quietly, then smiled, a sharp, predatory smile that felt like justice in human form. We'll handle this, she said. He wanted a joint account. Perfect. That means he's a joint participant in the consequences. You don't owe him a dime. She drafted a 2-page agreement. Page 1. Natalie Pierce and Ethan Harper mutually agree to dissolve joint account number under both names. Page 2. Ethan Harper acknowledges his unauthorized withdrawal of $12,200 from said account, resulting in overdraft fees and credit damage. He agrees to pay a one-time repayment and release fee of $1,000 to Ms. Alvarez's trust account. In exchange, Natalie Pierce waives further claims, and all property belonging to Mr. Harper will be released upon receipt of payment. It was beautifully simple. I emailed it to Ethan, CCing Zara and his mother, along with a single message. Your belongings are in storage. The key will be released by my attorney upon receipt of the signed agreement and $1,000 payment. Otherwise, the account remains active with your name on it, and another $950 loan payment is scheduled to pull next week. Then I waited. 2 days of silence. Then, like clockwork, an alert pinged my phone. Transaction declined. Attempted payment, $950. Account balance, Wandhauern. I smiled. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again, this time from Ms. Alvarez's office. Ms. Pierce, her assistant said, voice barely hiding amusement. Mr. Harper is here in person. He's quite upset, but he has a cashier's check for $1,000 and would like to sign the agreement immediately. Authorize it, I said calmly. She laughed softly. I already did. According to her notes, Ethan came alone. No Zara, no mother. He looked exhausted, unshaven, eyes red, holding the check like it was an organ he'd had to cut out himself. He signed without reading, just mumbled, I just need my stuff back. Please. When she handed him the storage key, he muttered something about how unfair everything was, how I'd turned his mistake into a trap. She didn't reply. She just filed the signed papers neatly into a folder labeled Closure. The next morning, Ms. Alvarez and I met at the bank. We paid the remaining negative balance, $34, using Ethan's $1,000. We closed the joint account officially. When the banker printed the final statement, I glanced at the balance. Zero Helny. Clean. It was over. Ethan didn't text me again. But word travels fast in mutual circles. Apparently, his credit tanked after the failed payments hit his report twice. He couldn't qualify for a new apartment, so he moved back in with his mother temporarily. He'd had to sell that designer jacket, the one that started it all, on a resale app for half its value just to pay back his father, who'd lent him the $1,000 for the settlement. Zara's financial consulting business, the water filters and self-help nonsense, wasn't bringing in enough to help him. And his mother, after learning about the fake wellness checks and the call to my job, apparently turned on him, furious for dragging their name through the mud. I didn't celebrate. I just exhaled. Peace doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like silence. I still pay that $950 every month, on time, from my own account. It's still my problem, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Because now, for the first time in years, everything in my life, the debt, the decisions, the quiet, truly belongs to me. It's strange how silence can feel louder than chaos. The week after closing that account, my phone barely buzzed. No missed calls, no guilt-laced texts, no surprise knocks on the door. Even the air in my condo seemed clearer, like it had been holding its breath and finally exhaled with me. I spent an entire morning just sitting at the kitchen table, the same one where Ethan once scolded me for not being a team. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, landing on my old chipped coffee mug. I wrapped both hands around it, tracing the small crack along the rim. A reminder, not everything that breaks needs to be replaced. Some things just need to be understood. That's what this whole mess had been. Not about money, or love, or even betrayal. It was about understanding. About learning who I really was when someone tried to take control of my peace. I'd spent years being responsible in the way people praise. Stable, calm, logical. But there's a difference between stability and silence, between being careful and being careful for other people. Ethan had counted on my silence. He'd mistaken it for compliance. He wasn't the first to do that, but he would be the last. 2 weeks later, I got an email from Ms. Alvarez. Subject, case file, Harper account closure, finalized. Attached was a neat PDF of the settlement agreement, signed and sealed. A single sentence at the end caught my eye. Both parties agree that neither shall pursue further claims related to account, property, or reputation. That last word, reputation, lingered with me. Because reputation had been Ethan's weapon of choice, he'd tried to ruin mine, spread rumors about my mental health, my job, my stability. Tried to make me look like the problem because he couldn't handle being seen as the consequence. I smiled as I read it again. Legally documented silence. A mutual gag order, wrapped in civility. That was the real victory. One evening, I stopped by the small corner cafe I used to go to every Friday, the one I'd stopped visiting once Ethan started calling it a waste of $6 on foam. The barista still remembered my order. "Long time no see," she said, handing me a caramel flat white. "Yeah," I replied. "Had to handle some things." She smiled knowingly. "Sounds like you handled them." I found a corner table, tucked my phone away, and opened my laptop. Not to check my loans, not to budget, to look at something I hadn't dared to in years, an old folder labeled PharmaStart. It was a half-built business plan I'd written during school, meant for a community-based telepharmacy service that would provide affordable consultations to underinsured patients. I'd shelved it back then because I'd convinced myself I wasn't ready, that I needed stability before risk. But I'd already lived through risk disguised as love, and survived. So maybe I was ready now. That night, as I sat surrounded by empty coffee cups and scribbled notes, I thought about how small moments, a joint account, a $200 jacket, a single overdraft call, could unravel entire facades. People think betrayal happens in big cinematic ways. Affairs, lies, confessions. But most of the time it starts quietly, in the sentences people repeat when they want to rewrite your boundaries. "If you really loved me, you'd trust me. It's not a big deal. We're a team. Why do you always make things so complicated?" They sound harmless until they aren't. Until one day you're sitting in a bank, watching your own money used to test your worth. I didn't tell anyone the full story. Not my coworkers, not even my mother. She'd always told me, people who need control will call you stubborn for having boundaries. I understood what she meant now, because that's what Ethan was, a person who couldn't stand that my life had structure, that I didn't need him to survive. He mistook independence for rejection. And when people like that realize they can't rewrite you, they try to ruin you instead. But here's the thing about quiet people like me. We don't explode. We document, we plan, we execute, and then we move on without ever looking back. 3 months later, my credit score ticked upward again. Ethan's, a mutual friend mentioned it had dropped into the high 500s, along with his ego. Zara had apparently pivoted her financial consulting page into a self-care brand about healing from toxic people. The irony almost made me choke on my coffee. I didn't hate them. I just stopped giving them any emotional real estate. Their noise didn't reach me anymore. One afternoon, as I was leaving work, Carol, my supervisor, caught me by the door. She smiled, softer this time. "You seem lighter these days." I returned the smile. "I am." "Glad to hear it," she said. "Oh, and by the way, HR mentioned a small internal project on medication adherence outreach. I thought you might want to lead it." I blinked. "Seriously?" She nodded. "You're organized, calm under pressure, and apparently very good at cleaning up messes." I laughed, an honest, surprised laugh that felt like something unclenching inside me. "Yeah," I said. "That sounds like something I can handle." That night, I walked into my apartment, my quiet, debt-filled, peaceful apartment, and let the door close behind me. The air felt still, clean, mine. I made dinner, paid my loan, logged the payment with the satisfaction of a ritual. And then I poured a glass of wine, opened my laptop, and added a new entry to my PharmaStart folder. Phase 1, launch consultation. For the first time in a long while, the future didn't feel like something I had to defend. It felt like something I could build. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You can share a home. You can share love. You can even share your dreams. But never, ever hand over the steering wheel to someone who wants to ride shotgun through your stability while calling it partnership. Because peace, real peace, isn't found in merging lives. It's in keeping yours whole. And if anyone ever tells you that you can't build a life on your own, let them know. You already did.